Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the day of 510 for the 18th of July. And I told you so. Tell you so because I say that the Ukrainians attacking the Crimean Bridge is going to get a reaction from the Russian side, and the Russians only thing that they can do is actually launch a massive missile strike, and exactly that's what the Russians did. And this time around they launched a massive missile strikes along most of this area here along the coast in the Odesa region, and some of it over at the Mykolaiv region. Mainly they are targeting ports facilities and some oil and munition storage and whatnot. And the one that I will cover, because I don't cover all sort of missile strikes, is that they hit the Odessa port. According to the Russian Defense Ministry information, they reported that they have launched a group strike of precision sea-based weapons against facilities where the Ukrainians use unmanned boats where they manufacture at this ship repair plant near Odessa. So I do not know exactly where it is. It is probably around this area here. And in addition, they also strike fuel storage. Allegedly 70,000 tons was destroyed. And in locations close to Mykolaiv and Odessa, and this fuel is allegedly meant for military use. And yeah, so there are footages already and photos already coming out, going viral, of all these strikes at Odessa. So it is yeah, it did indeed happen. It is corroborated. So yeah, this is probably also why Greta Thunberg go to Ukraine, because Russia is causing air pollution. Horrible people. So moving on to, let's go to the Southern Front. At the Southern Front, we have a Bayraktar TB2 getting shot down over Heroiske. This is the first shot down of a Bayraktar TB2 for a very long time. We haven't seen this Turkish-made drone has been shot down, because the Ukrainian forces do not dare to use them as attack aircraft. They are only using them for surveillance because the Bayraktar TB2 have very, very good camera. However, this drone was a bit not careful. He accidentally fly a bit too close to the sun, and then they got melted. So and then the Ukrainian forces have been really busy along the Dnipro River. There is amphibious operations along the Dnipro River. According to pro-Russian source Ryba, they reported that the Ukrainians have made 7 different attempts to cross the Dnipro River, and they have disembarked recon forces or commandos on various islands along the river. However, the Russian side have already installed minefields, and they also use artillery strike, allegedly destroying 3 boats. So a lot of useless, I would say useless things happening around here. So anyway, yeah, they have to do something. There's also amphibious operation reported near Dachi. This is where the Antonovsky Bridge is. This Antonovsky Bridge, the Ukrainians still have a salient or a beachhead over this place. So allegedly, the Ukrainian forces tried to land more troops over on this very island, that this area here. However, haven't been very successful. It seems they got spotted by the Russians, and the artillery shelling caused them to retreat. So that's all over at the Southern Front, at the Kherson Front. Moving into the Zaporizhzhia Front. At the Zaporizhzhia Front, there's nothing much over at the Kayamsky sector. There's no fighting being reported. The only thing that we have is a geolocation of Ukrainian forces, where Russians allegedly, based on the footage, launched airstrike in this geolocation by Deep State UA, the pro-Ukrainian source. The Russians strike this position, and which means that the Ukrainians do have some kind of position, which means which the Ukrainians probably captured in the earlier days as they launch an offensive. This area is usually known as a gray zone. The Russians do not put permanent troops over at these locations, so the Ukrainians are probably captured this position. And yeah, but this is nowhere close to where the Russian lines actually is. So Ukrainians are holding this area here. I wonder why they do not go and capture the rest of the Kayamsky town. So maybe there's Russian forces over there. And Moving into the Orikhiv sector, at the Orikhiv sector, the Ukrainian forces continue the attack north of Robotine. According to Ryba, the pro-Russian source reported that assault detachment of the 65th Mechanized Brigade on 2 tanks tried to attack the north of Robotine, did not work out. The Russians also counterattacked in a certain part of the Robotine, where the rifle infantry took out Ukrainian infantry. So the Ukrainian forces definitely is still attacking, with Russians doing some kind of a probing or scouting or hunting of Ukrainian troops. There is also fighting being reported near Novodanilivka, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. They say that 3 different attacks were repelled at Novodanilivka. So I assume that the fighting is probably around this area here, so that it's near enough to Novodanilivka. It doesn't make sense to be talking about Robotine, because the distance is a little bit far to make logical sense. Moving on into the Huyaipole sector, we have nothing over here, and over into the Velika Novosilka sector. This Velika Novosilka, at the Velika Novosilka region, the Ukrainian forces continue to put massive pressure on Staromayorsky and Uruzhaine. Fighting is being reported in this region here, according to the Russian Defense Ministry, Deep State UA, and Ryba, which means you have the Russian Defense Ministry, you have the pro-Ukrainian source and the pro-Russian source, all of them reporting that the fighting is over at Staromayorsky. And according to pro-Russian sources, the information coming out saying that the Ukrainians are doing the attack are the Marines of the 35th Brigade of the Ukrainian Navy, and they are fighting in the northwest outskirts of Staromayorsky, and they do take position in a couple of houses, and in this area they are also covered by tanks. So which means that northwest, probably the Ukrainians are around this area here, and they are covered by tanks. Maybe some tanks are positioned in certain distance to shell at Russian positions within the town. The town is still under Russian control, and fighting is still ongoing, with the Ukrainians still trying to figure out how to penetrate. The one at Uruzhaine is reported by the Russian Defense Ministry and Deep State UA, the pro-Ukrainian source, and nothing much. There's no details in terms of how the fighting went. And over at the Rivnopils region, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry reported that the Russians attacked in the area of Rivnopil, as well as Novodarivka. So this is kind of bizarre, because we also have information coming from Ryba, the pro-Russian source, talking about the Ukrainians attacking the northern part of Pryone. And so the Ukrainians allegedly is attacking the northern part of Pryone, where the Russians are holding this settlement. Yet we have alleged fighting near Novodarivka and Rivnopil, which is further up north. So I have no idea where the front line is in this sense, because how do you attack here while the Ukrainians are attacking the below? Yeah, I'm not too sure. So we shall continue to monitor and see what is the exact front line is. Currently it's not so clear to me. And moving on over at the Donetsk Front. And at the Donetsk Front, we have Ukrainians attacking Volodymyrivka. This is reported by the Russian Defense Ministry, with the Ukrainians attacking in this direction towards the Russian positions over here. So far, it doesn't look like a massive offensive action, since we didn't see other sources talking about this. Over at the Marinka region, fighting as usual continues at Marinka, with both sides pointing at each other, saying that they are the one that stolen the cookie. And then, however, there's this interesting information. Deep State UA reported that the Russian forces attacked south of Krasnohorivka. They say that it's a ventilation shaft of the Trudovkaya mine, and I have no freaking idea where is that. Where is this ventilation shaft? So, but south of Krasnohorivka, that I know. So the Russian forces probably attacking around this area here, so south of Krasnohorivka. And this information is also somewhat seems to be corroborated by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, because the Ukrainian Defense Ministry also mentioned about Russians attacking at Krasnohorivka. So we do have corroborating information of the pro-Ukrainian source and the Ukrainian Defense Ministry mentioning that the Russians are attacking in the area of Krasnohorivka. So I find that interesting. Over at the Avdiivka Front, the Ukrainians continue their Avdiivka offensive with fighting reported at Pervomaisky. Information coming from the Russian Defense Ministry. The Russian Defense Ministry in the same report also mentioned about fighting at Vasily in the northern part of Avdiivka as well as at Krasnohorivka. And that's all we know. There's not much information about all this Ukrainian offensive over at this region here by any other sources. And moving away from Avdiivka Front, we have nothing at the New York Front, and moving into the Bakhmut Front. At the Bakhmut Front, major news. The Ukrainians have the high ground. The Ukrainian forces captured the northwestern part of Klishchiivka, mainly in the high ground around Klishchiivka. This entire high ground region has been captured by the Ukrainian forces, as the Russian forces are unable to hold this position as they withdraw into the city. So the Ukrainians now have the high ground. So with this high ground, the Ukrainian forces is going to be able to have fire control over the entire settlement over here. In fact, even further away, where the Russians have to send reinforcement in. So this is not going to be easy. Moving on from this area here, we have this is the southern front. We move into the northern front, and at the northern front, the Ukrainians also are on the offensive over at this Bakhmut region and towards Yakhine. Fighting is being reported at Bakhmut according to Deep State UA and Ryba. Both pro-Russian and pro-Ukrainian sources are reporting the Russians are fighting over here, or the Ukrainians are attacking over here. And at Yakhine, Deep State UA also mentioned that there is fighting over here. And given that the fact that the Ukrainians are the one of fighting, doing the offensive actions, I believe the one fighting at towards Yakhine is likely to be also Ukrainian. The Russians are continuing to hold the line. And based on one of these geolocations by Deep State UA, they geolocated Ukrainian forces over at this position. So this actually put into question whether the Russians actually managed to capture this defense line over here, because it's not possible unless this geolocation, this footage or video is actually pretty long time ago. But however, we do have this information of fighting near Yakhine, which means that the Russians may not have able to hold this line. The Ukrainians have managed to break through again, and the Russians have withdrawn back into maybe the forest lines or to the city itself. So situation continue to be very dynamic over at the Bakhmut region. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry reported fighting at Bodanivka. The Russians conducted an offensive towards Bodanivka, and nothing much else we do know about it. Deep State UA also mentioned about fighting near Orikovo-Vasilivka. I'm assuming that it's Ukrainian, because they only mentioned fighting over at this area here. And that's all from the Bakhmut Front. And moving into the Siversk Front, we have nothing over at the Siversk Front. There's no fighting over at Horivka, nor in the southern part of Siversk Front. Moving into the Kreminna Front. This is Kreminna. At the Kreminna Front, we have fighting reported within the Zaporizhzhia forestry, with both Deep State UA and Ryba both reporting that the Russians are on an offensive within the forest region here. The Ukrainian forces did some probing attack towards Kuzmine, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. And then there is fighting reported at Dibrova, according to the Russian Defense Ministry, where the Ukrainians launched an attack towards the Russian positions at Dibrova. So this is a situation around the Zaporizhzhia forestry. There is a geolocation of Russian forces over at this position. So this does confirm that the Russians continue to have at least this area here under Russian control. And the Russians also started doing probing attacks into the Toske region, according to Ryba. So the Ryba said that they literally just wrote that the Russians are probing Ukrainian defenses, doing sorties into Ukrainian positions. So further up north, we have the Ukrainians on the attack over at Chervonopopivka. accordingly is the 411th Battalion of the 141st Rifle Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces firing into Russian lines near Chervono-Popivka. And they're moving on. Further up north, we have Ukrainians also attacking at Makiivka, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. Further up north, the Russian salients that where they cross over the Zaporizhzhia River is now 100% confirmed. It exists because Deep State UA continue to report that this is the case. And interestingly, there was previously this discrepancy because the Russian sources saying that the Russians control this position, whereas the Ukrainian forces say that the Russians' breakthrough is only this big. So the latest information coming from Ryba is that both is true. Ryba reported that the Russian forces captured the western part of Kreminna, and in fact in their mapping shows this new capture, which is actually reported by pro-Ukrainian sources. And they continue to hold these salients that the Russians have previously captured in the southwestern part of Kreminna, which means that all these are true. It means both Ukrainian and Russian sources is likely to be all corroborating each other. So this is very good. I really like it when sources from both sides are corroborating each other's information. And moving on into the Svatove Front, we do not have any other information other than the one at Kreminna. And moving into the Kupyansk Front. At the Kupyansk Front, the Russian forces continue their offensive over at the area of Svatove. And the rest of the region here, there's no more offensive being reported. Over at the Svatove region, the Deep State UA reported that it's fighting south of Svatove. And this is corroborated by Ryba. The pro-Russian source reported that the Russian forces are storming Ukrainian positions west of Liman Pershi. And this actually invalidated Surya Maps' previous mapping that the Surya Maps claims that the Russian forces actually captured most of the forest. So this seems to be entirely invalidated, which means this information is wrong, because the Ukrainians actually have defensive positions west of Liman Pershi that the Russians need to overcome, and which is why the front line currently is around this area here. So this invalidates the possibility that the Russians actually have all these areas, because if the Russians captured this entire forest region or most of it, the Ukrainians will find it really hard to penetrate through. The Ukrainians will have to do massive offensive actions to do to clear all these Russian positions. So this is interesting. And there is also reinforcement reported at Sinkivka. Due to the Russian offensive in this region here, they sent the 14th Mechanized Brigade to Sinkivka for reinforcement. So this is reported by the pro-Russian source Ryba, and so the reinforcement reaching Sinkivka, there is a counterattack trying to hold back the Russian offensive. The counterattack is being reported by Ryba, actually, the pro-Russian source, saying that the Ukrainians have already tried several times to recapture lost positions in the western part of Liman Pershi, which is here. So that's all from the Kupyansk Front. This is actually supposed to be grayed out. And that's it. There's nothing over the Kharkiv fronts nor along the border between Ukraine and Russia, and that's it. Press the subscribe button, press the like button, and this is the summary for the day of 510 for the 18th of July. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next update.